You're listening to Melanie Cole on Next Trip Radio.
Hey. Hi, how's it going? Welcome to the show. I'm so glad you could join us today on Next Trip Radio. I am Melanie Cole, and my guest today is Todd Bureau from Adventure Alaska Tours. Rockin'. Welcome to the show, Todd.
Well, greetings.
Well, greetings from Hope, Alaska, right?
Yes, that is.
You're way far up there, huh? So tell us about Adventure Alaska Tours, Todd. What do you do?
Well, we're a small group tour operator. That kind of means that we specialize in groups that are not what folks consider when they usually travel to Alaska, which is most often a cruise tour or one of the big bus tours. So we do groups of 8 to 10, and we wander in places where the big folks don't go.
So what are you talking about, and how do you get around? You take trains? What do you do?
Oh, it depends. There's a number of different itineraries. The road portions are by van. We have some trips that use small aircraft, and other trips are canoeing and hiking based. On the roads, it's van, and sometimes to the ends of the road.
To the ends of the road, and you're kind of at the ends of the earth, too, aren't you?
Well, yeah, some places you look around and say that's definitely true.
That's definitely true. So people that want to book a trip with you, what do they do? They call you up and tell you what they want to see, or do you, because how do you know what you want to see when you go to Alaska?
Well, most people it is, a first trip, or sometimes they come and they kind of get overwhelmed and want to pick an area in a future trip to kind of get a little better feeling for. But usually if it's the first trip, you just kind of start fishing out there. Most people anymore, they kind of do their research early on by the internet and kind of get overwhelmed by all the different choices there are. And then you kind of get a feel for what type of trip you're looking to do. Some people, or the vast majority of folks that come to Alaska, do come by cruise, but that's a very different experience than what we offer. And then those that aren't inclined toward that, they pick something different, and they kind of filter down and find the one that fits their niche.
Well, I think of, when I think of it, I think of a cruise. But when you're doing a cruise, and there's a new type of traveling called cultural immersion. And while Alaska is part of this country's 50 states, it does seem a different culture, and these cruises seem to just kind of view it from water and not kind of get in there and get, I'd want to go fishing and rafting and hiking, and so, what would you do? What kind of tours?
Well, the biggest difference for the large group or the cruise ship tours, they're basically designed to deal with thousands and thousands of people all the time and every day, so it's a very different experience. They do have cultural components and things, but you can't really promise authenticity in a small village or something like that if you have it all set up for 6,000 people a day. So it's a very different experience.
So let's talk about some of your tours. So you've got an interior coastal tour. What is that one?
Well, that's probably our most popular. It's a overview of Alaska, kind of makes a circle around and has a contrasting different areas. It goes through the interior, and then it has a element into a ghost town, an old mining town at the end of the road in Wrangell, St. Elias. It's actually the nation's largest national park, and most people have never heard of it. And it's a wild, wild neighborhood, and then it crosses over and adds a marine element, crossing over Prince William Sound and then going out into the Kenai Fjords National Park. It's primarily a maritime park, and spends a couple of nights in our wee little end-of-the-road town of Hope.
And what do we do in Hope?
Well, Hope's kind of our base, because that's where we're at, and we have little log cabins here that the groups lodge in, so they kind of get a feel for how different life is in a tiny town at the end of the road in Alaska. And they also use this as a base to go do the trips from here, like day trips out to like the Kenai Fjords National Park and things like that. So they kind of finally get a place on that particular itinerary. They're in the same spot 2 nights, and we have a barbecue, and we go to a local restaurant, and there's a fabulous little bar at the end of the road that overlooks, it's kind of, the road literally dead ends into the ocean, and it's in the mountains, and they have wonderful music there, so that's also a cultural little element during the summer, too, for folks.
A cultural element, that's great. And what do we... what's the weather typically like? So we're wearing hiking boots, jeans, snow? Are we wearing winter clothes all the time?
Well, it does kind of run the gamut. The summer months are pretty much June, July, and August, but anywhere in there, the weather can change. It can range from actually into the 90s in the interior to it could be in the upper 40s or so, or toward the end of August it could be in the upper 30s or so. So it really kind of swings all directions. So when you travel to Alaska, you best pack layers and kind of be prepared for what the day deals you.
And now, when is the best time to come there? If you want to kind of see the interior, is that not a winter kind of thing to do?
Well, winter is actually a pretty neat time. We have a trip, a winter trip associated with the Iditarod, and it's a fabulous time, but it's a different experience entirely. A lot of things are closed in the winter months, so to see Alaska and kind of get the feel that you see from a lot of pictures is definitely the summer months, because the access is different, and again, a lot of things are open, but then that is usually oftentimes sets people's interest to come back in the other season, which is most of the year, and see what winter's like.
So when you come there in the winter, you get to come and hang out along the trail of the Iditarod, where, like any other race, you're going to hang out somewhere at the beginning
of
the end.
Well, it's like the particular trip we do. It begins and ends in Anchorage, and they come to Hope and spend a night here, and then we go down to the community of Homer, which is overlooking Kachemak Bay, and spend 3 days kind of learning how to drive a dog team. So we mush out to a remote lodge and spend a couple of nights there, and you get to drive a dog team, and if you're so inclined, or ride in the basket, or just be what degree of participation you want. And then from there, we head to the start of the race and witness that. That's a pretty delightfully chaotic event in downtown Anchorage. And then from there, fly out to a remote homestead along the trail, and that's actually one of the checkpoints. And then the teams come through there the next day, and it's at the end of 7 days, you're kind of thoroughly immersed in dogging. So. And
what does a trip like that cost?
That one this last year was $3,500. Let's see, $37.45. It's an expensive one with small aircraft and everything else.
So that includes everything. How about food?
Yeah, it includes everything, and Arctic gear and everything else. You just kind of got to show up with a good spirit, and away you go. Oh,
so you provide the Arctic gear?
Yeah, most folks don't have that, and the temperatures can vary. It's the first part of March, which is nice because the days are getting long, and it's usually pretty moderate, but it could be as cold as 20 below, and it could be 40 above, so kind of a wide range.
Yeah, well, I'd come there, honey, all prepared, because I'm in Chicago, and we go way below zero sometimes. And
you probably have more wind than we do.
Jump up to the 60s the next day. It's really bizarre. Why don't you tell people, Todd, where they can find out more information about your tours?
Well, probably the best, the most detailed is of course, the web, and the website is AdventureAlaskaTours.com. AdventureAlaskaTours.com. How fun does that sound? These are the kind of trips when you hear about them on Next Trip Radio. And remember, you can podcast these shows 24 hours a day on demand. And you hear about a trip like this, and it just makes you want to go there. And Todd Bureau sounds like just a real nice, peaceful, kind of loving guy. And how fun to take a trip with a guy like that and his family and see their town of Hope, Alaska. That's just fun and beautiful stuff to see. You're listening to Next Trip Radio, and I'm Melanie Cole. Stay tuned. There's more to come.